how do I play this scene?
So both
It's so difficult.
Both Furukawa-san and Hirano-san, for them to be together, as Jonathan was mentioning, here at the Anime Fest, or even at a international convention, it's the first time. But not only that, the fact that they're actually doing a live dubbing for you guys is actually incredible. Like, you never see that at conventions, right? So Furukawa-san said, yeah, it's going to be the first time in 30 years for us to do this dialogue together. So it's a real treat. So please make sure to give them lots and lots of support, because this is really amazing that they're doing this. So I think they're setting up now. So how excited are you guys that you get to see a live dubbing?
I will try that.
Ready?
Ready to go?
There won't be any sound except for them.
Ready?
Set.
Go!
Một cái.
Again.
あ、なんだこれよ。いやー、メンダー。何やってんだよ、お前。そんなところで。あ、おい、メンダー、お前、何言ってんの、なんてことだ。バカめ。違うってば俺じゃなくてうわーやめろよせメンドよせあ違うってばメンド言えてか
ダーリン見つけた今までどこほっつき歩いてたんじゃ待ってダーリン3つ数えるうちに出てくるっちゃ1つ2つ3つ
A standing ovation, guys! Come on!
How about it?
So tired.
もう鳥肌 Anyone else goosebumps from watching that? It's pretty amazing. Yeah. もう鳥肌すごいね。Yeah.
今水の中プールの中でこうセリフを言わなきゃいけないところがあったんですけど、あれを今古川さんがどのようにしてやっていたかは分かりましたか？
So you might have heard that he was having to speak underwater. Did you notice how he was reproducing those sounds live here?
うわメンドやめろドボンこんなふうに In the water やめろ
サウンドエフェクトあり
絵ではいろいろなことが動くんですけど、私たちはこうマイクの前で絶対こう動いてはいけないところなので、大きな声を出すときには少しこう体を離したり、それから今のように水の中ではこうやったり、マスクをつけてるときなんていうのは本当に自分でマスクをつけると音が入らないので、時々こう手で隙間を作ってこうやったり、いろんな工夫を
紙コップをこう当ててやるとそういう感じになったりとか。
So when we're recording this, we are actually not allowed to really move away from the mic much. And in order to create a lot of these special sounds, we have to improvise. And some of the ways we have to improvise are if you're shouting a really loud voice, you might have to actually back up a little bit so that you don't blow the mic out. Other examples are if you have to wear a face mask, you can't actually wear a face mask because the sound won't go through properly. So you kind of have to improvise by putting your hand in front of your mouth And Mr. Furukawa said, yeah, and sometimes if you wanted to get a certain type of effect, you might have to flap your lips with your finger or even use a paper cup to make the echo sound a little bit differently. So they had to improvise quite a lot in the environment.
はい、だからあとは、よく物を食べながら喋ってるようなところもありますし、ラーメンをすするような時も何にもラーメンは食べてないのにラーメンを食べながら喋るようなことができるんですね。
So he's pretty amazing because sometimes there's scenes where they have to speak while eating. In the show, right? And so it's not like they can actually slurp up a bunch of ramen while they're recording, but he can do it. He can imitate it amazingly.
タバコを吸うときはスモーク。
So when smoking?
Smoking?
お前がこういうふうに喋るんですね。
And so they speak kind of, put something in your mouth to simulate the sound of you speaking if you had a cigarette.
シガレット。
だからあとはこうまっすぐ本当に近くにマイク近いずにただ立ってるだけなんですけど、遠くに行く時にも声を遠くに出さなきゃいけないんですね。特にラムちゃんはよく空を飛んでて下に向かってダーリンというので、その時にも声を大きく伸ばすんですね。だから
上から落ちる。
はい。
So for example, we're not allowed to really change our distance too much between the mic, but sometimes in the scenes, they're very far away. And so we have to simulate that distance, that shout, without really making sure, we stay within the sound limits. And he has an amazing ability, because Lum flies, right? So sometimes she is coming down, shouting something from the sky and coming toward you.
はい。だから、he's run away. So, ダーリン、どこ行くっちゃ？ Where to?
So he's running away and says, "Darling, where are you going?"
あとはアタルさんがよく蹴られて向こうにパーンと飛んでいくところがあるんですけど、それも彼はとても上手、黙った立ったままできるのでとても上手
So
なんです。
there are scenes where he gets kicked and gets sent flying over houses and stuff, right? So
やって
he's amazingly good at even simulating that.
シュットー上から落ちてくるダウンするときもね。上からダウンするときも。
So here's the way he falls.
レーシングカー。
He's a one-man sound effect.
That was pretty neat, pretty neat. So I know we want to save some time for questions, but I thought, well, let me ask you. I can ask them a question and have each of them answer it, or we can start to field questions from the audience. Do people have a lot of questions? I see a couple. So what I'll do is I'm going to ask Ms. Takada about her experience first starting off with developing the character designs for Lum and the other characters.
ですね、キャラクターデザインの仕事を始めた時には割と単行本4冊か5冊ぐらいしか漫画の方が進んでなくて、それを渡されて、設計図に起こす時に漫画の中からとてもいい顔っていうのを選んで、それを何回も模写して、自分のものになってから設計図に書き出していきました。
So when I started to do the character designs for Urusei Yatsura, there were only maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6, but probably closer to 4 or 5 volumes that had been published. And I was handed only about 4 volumes of the manga. And in order to do a character design, I went through page by page, panel by panel, and selected the best faces, the best appearances for each character. And then I practiced over and over copying those, drawing those, and combining all of the different angles until I could finally get the right character setting for the characters.
漫画を見ながらたくさんのアニメーターがアニメの絵を描くわけじゃなくて、私が一回、前、横、後ろ、それからどんな表情、どんなポーズをするっていういわゆる設計図のようなものを描くのが仕事で、それでキャラクターの色もメインキャラクターまでは私が決めました。
And so for the design, I focused not only on a full front view, a profile view, a view from the back, different expressions, kind of really made a complete set. And actually, I also was responsible for deciding the coloring for all of the main characters.
どうして青緑の髪の毛になったかっていうと、単行本の表紙では黄色だったり赤だったり、黒ベタ以外のところはすごいいろんな色で虹色にいろんな色をつけてあるのもあったんですけれども、そういう塗り分けが髪の毛にいっぱいあるようなのでちょっとアニメだと無理なんで、何か一色に決めなきゃいけないと思ったんですね。で黄色と黒に一番フィットして品がいいのが青緑じゃないかと思って決めました。
So if I was to describe, for example, Lum's hair color, right? This is a very unique hair color, this bluish green. If you looked at the manga covers, at the time it was actually changing constantly. There were many different varieties. There were even rainbow colors, and it's really not technically possible to, at the time especially, to simulate rainbow colored hair in a moving animation. And so I took into account the outfit and the colors used there as the blacks and the yellow, and I thought, what would be the most elegant color I could come up with that would blend and match well with the yellow and the black? And that ended up being this blue-green color.
一番最初に試し塗りした時には黒にグリーン真ん中のこういう濃い部分を黒にして周りグリーンにしたんですけれども、それだと髪の毛の量が多いので黒がすごい画面の中で重たくなるっていうことが分かったので、そのテストの後に濃いブルーとグリーンの塗り分けに決めました。
So actually, the very first mock-up I did in the simulation test we did, because if you remember, this is cell animation, right? It was black in the dark spots and green everywhere else. And when we put that on the screen, we found that there was just way too much black. It made the screen very, very dark, very, very heavy. And so we went back to the drawing board and we changed out the black with a darker blue, and found that the combination worked best for the technique at the time. So that's kind of how I arrived at the color for Lum's hair. All right.
じゃあ一人一人、書く、短い話で、自分がもう参加している間に面白いハプニングとかアドリブの話でもいいんですけど、平野さんからもしくは福川さんの方から、はい、じゃあお願いします。はい、それからですか。
今まででやはり一番思い出に残っているのは4年半このテレビの放送があって、その間に映画も入ったんですけれども、とにかくその4年半の間、土曜日の朝の10時から収録をしていたんです。朝の10時からさっきみたいなすごくハイテンションな声を皆さん出していたので、それはとにかくそのパワーだけでもすごかったなと思うのと、あとはその皆さんベテランばっかりだったので、我々がこういう演技をすると絵を描いていらっしゃる方々も声優さんがこれならここまでできるだろうなという、その作り手とそれから出演者のいわゆるそのいい競争があったので、クオリティがどんどん上がっていったっていうのがすごく印象に残っています。
So if I reflect back at the time when we were making this, one of the fondest memories I have actually is we actually did the recording every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And so for 4.5 years this continued, and every Saturday I got to stand next to this gentleman and be completely amazed at the skill and the entertaining quality that he contributed. And one of the interesting things is we played well with each other. There were so many veterans of the industry on staff that they taught us. We continually strived to get better, and our efforts were recognized by the creative staff. And the creative staff, we've heard, they heard our performances and they said, well, if the voice actors can do that much, then let's challenge them even more. And it was a friendly, a cooperative competition, if you were, of who can kind of outperform each other. And fortunately, I think it ended up in the work continually getting better throughout the 4.5 years. So that's a fantastic memory for me.
多分だからこういう今でもこの作り手と我々というのが仲がいいのではないかと思ってます。
And I think that's actually a major factor that I've been able to have such a great friendship over all of these years with the creators like Miss Akemi Takada and others. So it's very enjoyable.
布川さんっていうその最初にうるせえを作ったスタジオの社長さんも、今もキャストもスタッフもすごく可愛がってくれてます。
So even Mr. Nunokawa, who started Studio Piero, right, and was the producer on this show, even today he is intimately involved with them on a personal level and still friends, and they like to hang out and have a great time. So.
日本語読めたら布川さんの本買ってあげてください。
If anybody can read Japanese in here, please buy Mr. Nunokawa's book.
おそ松さんの企画術、Amazon で売ってます。
So this is the book. It's on sale at Amazon.
うるせえやつらの初期の話もいっぱい載ってます。
So there's a lot of his techniques and stories and background information that's in the book here, and it's titled Osomatsu-san. The anime Osomatsu-san. The planning techniques behind Mr. Osomatsu-san or Osomatsu-san. All right. じゃあ思い出話を一つお願いします。
そうですね、たくさんあるんですけれども、一番印象に残っているのは神谷明さんと2人だけしか出演しない回がありましてね。それで音響監督の柴さんが、2人だけだし今日はテストをなしでやりましょう。いつもテストやってラストテストと2回やって、それから本番って3回やるんですけど、それで収録するんですが、その時は最初からぶっつけ本番、いきなり本番やるんですね。それでやって OK になった。これはいい思い出ですね。怖かったですけれども。
So for me, gosh, I have so many great memories, but here's one for you that maybe not many people have heard. And there were 2 episodes throughout the series where it was only me and another voice actor, Mr. Akira Kamiya. And it was just the 2 of us. So the sound director, Mr. Chiba, he said, you know what? How about we just go without any rehearsal, any test this time? Normally, when you do the recording, there's actually 3 layers of testing before they do the real gig. But this time they just kind of said, let's go for it, instant final version, if you were, and just see how it went. And I was actually really thrilled to learn that our first take was approved and used. So for me, the 2 of us kind of almost ad-libbing, just doing it straight off the bat was a great experience.
私は本当にアニメーションが初めてだったのでスタジオの様子が分からなかったんですけど、録音する時の画面はこういう風に今見ていただいたように色もついてないのは普通なんですけれども、人の形の線もなくて、見に行って仕事をしている時の画面がこういう黒い線がずっと流れているだけだったり、赤い線が流れているだけだったの間に喋らなきゃならないっていうことを先輩たちがやっているのを見て、すごい仕事だなと。顔も出てないのに赤い線が出てる間はラムさんが喋って、緑の線が出たらアタルが喋ってっていう、そういう過酷な状況が普通なんだと思ってたんですけど、異常なことだと後で知りました。
She said that when she first started Urusei Yatsura, because it was her first animation, so she had no idea what to expect. And then she got to the studio to record, and she noticed that a lot of the characters were not even finished; they weren't filled in. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're kidding me! I have to do this," And that the green was Furukawa-san, and then the red was Hirano-san, and then there was black lines, and it was just craziness. And she was absolutely amazed by what they did and how they did that and turned into that. And she thought, oh my God, this is how animation is done. And she found out later on it's not always the case.